History is written by the victors, but it's fueled by technology. We often look back at the people of the Stone Age, the Romans, or the medieval knights as primitive, but they were just as smart as we are today. They just had a different toolkit. We've all had the daydream, stepping out of a time machine in the middle of a dusty Roman forum or a mud-caked medieval village. You aren't wearing armor, and you don't have a sword, but in your backpack you have the greatest secrets of the 21st century. To the people of the past, you aren't just a stranger from another land. You are a miracle, a sorcerer, a literal god. You possess the power to light the night, to cure the dying, and to see through the very fabric of the dark. But history has a brutal way of humbling the arrogant. Power in the past isn't about what you have, it's about how long you can keep it. In a world without wall outlets, gasoline, or satellite signals, your god-like status has an expiration date. Today, we're breaking down the 5 modern items that would grant you absolute power, and the exact moment that power would turn into a death sentence. This is the Modern God Protocol. Let's set the scene. The year is 800 AD. Western Europe is a fractured patchwork of forests, small villages, and terror. When the sun goes down, the world effectively ends. Fire is the only defense against the predators of the night, both the four-legged kind and the Viking raiding parties. Now, imagine you arrive at a fort on the English coast. You're wearing Gen 3 tactical night vision goggles. To a soldier in the 9th century, darkness is a solid wall. But for you, that wall doesn't exist. You see the world in a grainy, neon green high-definition glow. You can see the steam rising from a horse's breath 200 yards away. You can see the glint of a Viking's axe before he even clears the tree line. In the eyes of the locals, you don't just see you possess the eye of Odin. You could walk through an enemy camp and take out their leadership without ever lighting a single candle. You are an invisible ghost, an untouchable shadow. But here is the catch that the daydream always forgets: the lithium-ion battery. Modern NVGs are power-hungry. You might have 20, maybe 30 hours of godhood in your pocket. As the green light begins to flicker and the low battery warning starts to pulse in your ear, your heart rate spikes. Because once that screen goes black, you aren't a god anymore. You're just a man standing in the pitch black, surrounded by the world's most brutal warriors who now believe you are a creature of the abyss. They won't just try to kill you. They will try to exorcise you. Without power, your greatest edge becomes the very reason they hunt you down. The year is 1815. The fields of Waterloo are choked with the sulphurous smoke of thousands of muskets. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of the greatest tactical minds in human history, is losing. Why? Because he's fighting a war of guesswork. He can't see behind the ridge. He doesn't know that the Prussians are marching to flank him until it's too late. Now, imagine you launch a modern 4000 drone from behind the French lines. The buzzing sound alone would stop the battle. Thousands of men would look up at this mechanical spirit hovering in the clouds. Within seconds, you provide Napoleon with something no general in the history of warfare has ever possessed: the God's eye view. You show him the exact position of Wellington's hidden reserves. You show him the mud traps in the valley. You turn the most famous battle in history into a game of chess where you can see all the opponent's pieces. But drones are fragile. They are loud. And in 1815, people were very, very good at shooting things out of the sky. A single lucky musket ball, or even a strong gust of wind, and your $1 million tactical advantage is a pile of plastic and twisted copper in the mud. And Napoleon, he isn't a man who handles disappointment well. If you promise him victory through magic and then the magic breaks, you aren't his advisor anymore, you're a traitor. In the past, if you can't fix the miracle, you become the sacrifice. Power in the ancient world wasn't just about force. It was about the sound of your voice. In ancient Rome, the Colosseum was the heart of the empire. 50,000 people, from senators to beggars, gathered to decide the fate of gladiators based on the roar of the crowd. To command that crowd, you needed a legion, a crown, or a miracle. Enter the battery-powered megaphone. When you speak into that plastic cone, your voice doesn't just travel. It becomes a physical force. You can drown out the emperor. You can command the masses to rise up or lay down their arms just by breathing. To a Roman, this isn't a tool. It's the literal voice of Jupiter. You could start a riot, stop an execution, or crown yourself king of the forum in a single afternoon. But a megaphone is a one-trick pony. It requires batteries, and those batteries have a very short lifespan when you're screaming at 50,000 people. When the magic finally cuts out and you're standing in the sudden, deafening silence of the arena, you realize the danger. A god who can no longer speak is just a man in a toga. The Romans were famous for their logic. Once they realized the voice came from the box and not your soul, they won't worship you. They'll melt the plastic and see what's inside. Let's talk about the Middle Ages. The 14th century knight is the pinnacle of modern warfare. He is a walking tank, encased in a masterpiece of articulated steel. Swords bounce off him. Arrows shatter against his breastplate. He is, for all intents and purposes, invincible on the battlefield. Until he meets you. You aren't carrying a mace or a poleaxe. You're carrying a small, orange canister of law enforcement grade pepper spray. As the knight charges, you don't run. You wait. And as he raises his sword, you unleash a cloud of spicy air directly into his visor. To the knight, his world has just ended. His eyes feel like they've been rubbed with hot coals. His lungs seize up. He falls from his horse, clawing at his face, begging for mercy from a weapon he can't even see. To the onlookers, you didn't fight him, you cast a spell of blinding fire. You broke the most powerful warrior in the land without even touching him. But pepper spray is a finite resource. You have roughly 10 seconds of spray in that can. If that knight has 10 friends and he always does, you are in trouble. Once the spell is used up, you have no way to recharge. You've humiliated the warrior class and proven you're a sorcerer. In 1340, sorcerers don't get medals. They get burned at the stake. Your prank just became your epitaph. Finally, we look at the one item that might actually stand the test of time: the solar-powered calculator. We head back to ancient Babylon, the cradle of civilization, where math and astronomy was sacred arts. To these people, the movement of the stars was the handwriting of the gods, and math was the only way to read it. If you arrived with a $5 calculator from a grocery store, you would be the most valuable human being on the planet. You could solve in 3 seconds what their greatest scholars couldn't calculate in 3 years. You could predict eclipses, calculate crop yields, and manage the empire's wealth with 100% accuracy. And because it's solar-powered, your miracle never runs out of juice. As long as the sun shines, you are the smartest person in the room. But here is the Babylonian trap. You can give them the answer, but you can't show them the how. To a civilization that values the ritual of logic, a box that just knows is deeply suspicious. You aren't a mathematician to them. You're a fraud who has a demon trapped in a plastic box doing the work for you. When the high priests demand to know the secret of your wisdom, and you can't explain the silicon chips inside, the god of numbers will be seen as a liar. And in Babylon, liars don't stay in the palace for long. Technology is a bridge between the possible and the impossible. But in the past, that bridge is always made of glass. It's fragile, it's temporary, and it's dangerous. If you were sent back to the past tomorrow, and you could only take one item, knowing it would eventually break or fail, what would it be? Would you choose the power of the night vision, the vision of the drone, or the wisdom of the calculator? Let me know your survival plan in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Modern God Protocol, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. We're exploring a new era every week. Until next time, remember, the future is only a miracle until the batteries die. See you in the next one.